All right, today we're jumping right into a really high-stakes series of encounters from an ancient text. This all goes down in one of the most volatile locations you can imagine at the time. It's a story packed with parables, clever political traps, and at its core, a profound challenge to authority. Okay, so let's dive into this scene, because the setting is absolutely everything here. Jesus has just walked into the temple in Jerusalem. Now, you have to understand, this is the very center of religious and political power for his opponents. The air is just thick with tension. This isn't going to be some quiet sermon. It's a direct confrontation right on their home turf. And it's Jesus who makes the first move. But he doesn't do it with a direct, "you're all wrong" kind of statement. No, instead, he uses a story, a parable, that is really a powerful and pretty thinly veiled indictment of the leaders standing right there in front of him. So he tells this story about a vineyard owner and these incredibly violent tenants. It unfolds in 4 really clear steps. First, the owner sets up this beautiful vineyard, a symbol of care, of investment, but the tenants, the guys who are supposed to be taking care of the place, they just reject his authority. First, they beat his servants, and then, and this is a shocking escalation, they actually kill the owner's own son, all so they can seize control for themselves. So after laying out this really brutal scenario, he kind of turns the tables. He asks a question, not just to the crowd, but directly to the leaders there. He's forcing them to be the judge and jury, to say what the just consequences should be for this kind of rebellion. And the answer? It's delivered with this, chilling finality. The owner will come, destroy those tenants, and hand his vineyard over to someone else. The message is just unmistakable. Your stewardship is temporary, and if you rebel against the owner, well, there are ultimate consequences. And listen, this wasn't just some random fable. The religious establishment, we're talking the chief priests, the teachers of the law, they understood the allegory perfectly. The vineyard was their nation, they were the tenants, and they knew he was accusing them of rejecting God's messengers and ultimately God's son. The first shot had officially been fired. So they've been publicly cornered, exposed. How do they react? They fire back. But they don't engage with the parable itself. No, instead, they try to trap him with this series of brilliant, seemingly inescapable questions. Each one is designed to turn either the public or the Roman authorities against him. The gauntlet begins. Their first attempt was just a perfect political trap. You have the Pharisees and the Herodians, 2 groups who were normally bitter enemies, teaming up. And they ask him, is it right to pay taxes to Caesar? I mean, look at this. It's a flawless trap. If he says yes, he's a Roman sympathizer in the eyes of the people. If he says no, they can run right to the Romans and report him for treason. It's a classic no-win scenario. But his response is a masterclass in what you might call rhetorical jujitsu. He asks for a coin, points out Caesar's face on it, and just completely sidesteps their political minefield. He acknowledges, yeah, you have a civic duty to the state, but he immediately pivots to a much higher, spiritual duty to God. He doesn't just answer the question, he totally reframes it, leaving his opponents stunned and amazed. Okay, so the first trap failed spectacularly. So another group steps up to the plate, the Sadducees. Now, these guys were the theological conservatives of their day, the wealthy, priestly elite. And their trap isn't political, it's theological. And it's aimed at a core belief they completely rejected, the resurrection. So they build this elaborate, almost comical, hypothetical scenario. It's based on a specific law. You have a woman who is married, one by one, to 7 brothers, and they all die. Their question is designed to make the whole idea of resurrection sound completely ridiculous, a logistical nightmare. So, in the afterlife, whose wife is she? Jesus doesn't even get bogged down in their silly hypotheticals. He goes straight to the root of their mistake. He basically tells them, you don't get it. You misunderstand the scriptures and the power of God. He explains that life after death is totally different from life here. It's beyond our earthly ideas of marriage. And then he uses their own scriptures against them, arguing that God calls himself the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, patriarchs who are long dead, proving he is a God of the living, not the dead. He just dismantles their whole argument. So after he just so decisively handles these 2 hostile questions, you can feel the entire dynamic in the temple courts just shift. The aggression kind of melts away, and it's replaced by this moment of what seems like genuine intellectual curiosity. And that's when one of the teachers of the law who'd been listening this whole time and was clearly impressed steps forward. He's not asking a trick question, he asks a sincere one. He cuts through all the politics, all the theology, and gets right to the very heart of the matter. In a religious system that had hundreds and hundreds of laws, his answer was just profound in its simplicity. He boiled everything, the entire system, down to just two fundamental principles. And what are those two principles? First, total, all-in devotion to God. And second, a love for other people that's equal to the love you have for yourself. He says every other law, every single one, just hangs on these two pillars. And the teacher who asked the question is so impressed, he openly agrees, saying that this kind of love is way more important than all the religious rituals. The hostility in the room is just broken. And that's it. The gauntlet is over. He has successfully navigated every political and theological trap they could throw at him. He answered a sincere question with so much wisdom that he has completely silenced all his challengers. And now, having won the defensive battle, he seizes the initiative and goes on the offensive. And this all builds to his final public teaching in the temple. He actually sits down right across from the treasury, where people are making their offerings, and he just watches. He uses this moment to deliver a really powerful lesson on piety, power, and what true wealth actually looks like. So first, he issues this direct, scathing warning against the very leaders he's been confronting all day. He calls out their hypocrisy, he points to their love for public recognition, the fancy clothes, the best seats in the house. He accuses them of making a big performance out of their prayers, while behind the scenes, they're exploiting the most vulnerable people in society, like widows. And then he uses a real-life example to just drive the point home. He watches as the wealthy and powerful make a big show of dropping huge sums of money into the treasury. I mean, their donations are big, but they come from their surplus, they're extra. And then a poor widow comes up and puts in 2 tiny little copper coins, worth almost nothing. And this is where he delivers this radical redefinition of value. He tells his disciples, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all the others combined. Why? It's simple. The rich gave what they wouldn't even miss. She gave everything she had to live on. It wasn't about the amount of the gift. It was about the scale of the sacrifice. And so this whole showdown in the temple, from that first parable against the tenants, all the way to his praise for the widow, it leaves us with this powerful, lingering question. It really challenges us to think about what we value. Is it the visible, impressive displays of authority and wealth? Or is it the quiet, total, and often unseen acts of genuine faith and sacrifice?